Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of the Draxx Life Podcast, where we'll chat about some of the weird and the wondrous. Let's get to the show. In a bathroom. Here we go.
I got one too. I gotta bring one out. It's from New Jersey too.
You got a bathrobe from New Jersey.
Yes.
All right, we're live. All right, ladies and gents, nice to see you. Nice to talk to you. Look at this guy, like dressed like a frickin' model right here, wearing the Ralph Lauren. Did I say it right?
You know, that's right. You got it right this time.
It's got the conductor hat on.
The Oshkosh Bagosh. Remember
Pulling,
the Cameron line.
Yeah, well, it got the glasses so you can't see the eyes. You never know what he's looking at, who he's looking at, what he's looking at. Here we are.
They always come off halfway through the episode.
I know. Eventually you're like, I can't do this, man. I can't be this guy. So, all right. This is what I talked to Big Bobby A beforehand. Lately, this dude has been doing his prep. He's been dancing. He's been, flying rooftop to rooftop on Twitter. The dark night of Twitter, X. And he's usually asking me questions, and I end up just rambling for a while. So this time, I've kind of prepared some questions, some thoughts, and this is going to be an interview of
I like
Bobby
that.
A.
We're flipping the tables
flipping the
here.
script a little bit.
Flipping the script, turn the tables.
Yeah, and they're not like they're not like personal biographical questions at all, but just like random thoughts I had. I was like, let's see what Bobby A has to say about this subject. All right.
Nice.
All right, cool. So we'll start with an easy one. And it's just this, right? Since we're at kind of the beginning of the new year, I was curious, like, all right, predictions. Everyone's making predictions. And I was just curious. You're always, in the ether, discovering, searching. Like, if you try to look into the future, like, I'm not talking about a year, I'm talking about like a decade, right? What is like one prediction you have? Like, what is something that's going to change in the next 10 years that you want to mark now on this date so that we can look back and see if Bobby A is the next Nostradamus?
Yeah. Bob Stradamus. But yeah.
Because we're on the precipice, right? We have AI that's growing.
I was going that route.
Crypto. You've changing tides of government powers. New ones are rising. Some are in the decline. So where do we see ourselves a decade from now?
A decade from now.
It's a long time.
I think we're going to be in a dangerous situation unless we can control it now.
So negative, not positive.
No. Yeah, very cynical from the start. Just right out of the gate, cynical. I think it's a very delicate situation where we're in right now. I think if you want to go existential wise, I think we're at the end of a cycle, and there needs to be a baptism of sorts, a rebirth that's going to happen very soon. And is it going to be led by AI? Is it going to be led by the people? Is it going to be led by the truth that comes out about, as we talked about, history and stuff like that, all the information that's coming out and it's available? But I think there's going to be some kind of cleansing that's going to happen.
Interesting. Go ahead, keep going.
No, go ahead.
No, so it's funny, like, as you say this, there's a book, I think Henry the Chan told me about years ago. It's called The Fourth Turning. Have you ever heard of this?
No, I have not.
So if I recall, this book is kind of like, it falls within the domain that you, I think, would like a little bit of conspiracy. But the author kind of talks about how, like, civilization has, like, epochs. It has these waves, kind of like just what you said.
Yeah,
and that's
life cycle.
Exactly. And they come in, like, fours. And that we are in the process. Let's see if I can get the...
Why is it 4? Yeah.
Let's see if I can...
I like number stuff, too. I don't get too deep into the numerology of a lot of things that you can go way deep into a hole with numerology, but I
I'm
like
trying to find
33.
a plot here, but essentially it talks about how like we're on the fourth. We're at like the precipice of a shift, and
Yes.
that what you see in that is like revolutions. You see wars. You see like economic ups and downs. You see like new technology. It doesn't mean it's gonna be bad. It just means that you're like at a shift point, almost like a tectonic plate shift. And this guy tries to make the case that like that we are living in one of these shifting waves where it goes from like the third turning to the fourth turning. It's like a transitionary period. So maybe you're right on the money with that
Yeah,
prediction.
no, I think that's spot on. I think we're at the end of you know how I think we talked about this before. Animal kingdom has certain life cycles, animals, plants, it's always circular. So the circle is always a big profound demonstration of what life is like. And I forgot the episode it was. I think it was the Socrates episode, where we were talking about triangles and circles.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of what existence is can be um, explained with shapes.
yeah, I remember this.
Geomet, yeah,
This was you and
geometrical.
Darius.
Yeah. So we're at the if this was the cycle, we're right at the tip of it. We're at the end. So
Interesting.
I agree with that. I should check that out, whatever
Yeah,
that is.
for those listening, it's called The Fourth
Yeah.
Turning by William Strauss and Neil Howe. And it says like the book
What's their
says.
background? Who are they? They're
That's a good
just
question.
authors.
Let's look this up. I don't think this is like crazy conspiracy. I think these guys are like historians. Let me look at this real quick.
Yeah, it
This is
seemed
called I think this is called the Strauss Howe generational theory, and it describes
generational.
a
Interesting.
theorized recurring generation cycle in American history.
I think that's
According to the theory,
they're onto
historical
something.
events are associated with recurring generational personas and archetypes. So it kind of like seems like each cycle kind of has like a spirit or an archetype, and that based off that archetype, um, there's certain things you can derive from it. But William Strauss is an American author. Oh, interesting. He's a playwright, a theater director, and lecturer. And Neil Howe is an American author and consultant. So this might be their main claim
Yeah,
to
I
fame.
see.
I don't know, but yeah. Anyway, check it out. Those of you who might
Yeah.
be interested. This is the fourth
So he's a
turning.
playwright. Interesting. So he's an
Yeah,
artist basically. Yeah.
yeah,
Like
and like Neil Howe seems like he's an author, and it says consultant, but I don't
that's
really
what
know
I
what that
yeah,
means.
that's what I thought. But to land this point, I believe we are on the precipice of something. I don't want to say very. How can I word this? Because it could go left real quick,
Okay,
and but
just
it
say
could
it.
also be very positive.
Okay, interesting.
Could just this be like a gigantic global? I don't want to say it's a hot war. I think we're already in a cold war right now, where everything is behind the scenes, but there's no attacks, there's no strikes yet.
So
But
let me ask you this
it could get
question.
hot real quick. That's what I'm saying.
Let me ask you this question, which just piggybacking off that last point.
Yeah.
Like, are we always in a Cold War? Like, we get to history and we talk about the Cold War, right? But it's like, aren't we always in a Cold War with other countries? Like, historically, like, even in times of peace, countries are kind of trying to get leverage on their, maybe not their neighbors, but their trading partners who are not necessarily um, their partners, right? Like even if there was no war between China and America, we're kind of always trying, like two MMA fighters, right? They're always trying to kind of like maneuver and get into a position where if something went down, they have an advantage. So I wonder, like this idea that like Cold War's coming and going. I kind of wonder, like, are countries always in Cold Wars essentially?
Yeah, like are we in a perpetual state of Cold War? I
It's all
think
yeah. It's
with
either it's like
certain,
you think so.
I think yes, with certain countries, with China and Russia, I think yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So it's not like the Cold War ended. It's more like no, no, no. We're always in the state of Cold War. Just
yeah,
sometimes it's closer to a hot war, and sometimes it's the hot war is much much further away.
yeah. I think you're right on that one. I think it's more of that. But in terms of it, China, in terms of our technology, going back to your point from earlier, if if our lives are fully digital, the Western Hemisphere is in big trouble. Is in big trouble because I think the Eastern Hemisphere controls most of what's going on behind the scenes there. And even look at social media, even look at TikTok. They're well. So what's the latest? I do have a question. What's the latest on America banning TikTok?
Uh
Or I don't know about that.
that's a good question. Let me look it up real quick. I know that there was it's
There was a
again. It kind of
hearing
like
about it. Yeah.
it was being talked about like
Yeah.
probably a while back, maybe a year plus ago, and then I feel like I heard some other like it got respun up. I don't know. Um, I mean, here's the one thing I think when it comes to this kind of stuff, like
Are you worried? So that's a different question. Am I worried? Yes. I think everyone knows I have a suspicious mind.
yes,
I'm
yes,
worried. I'm worried. That's
um,
why
yeah.
Thursday night or Wednesday into Thursday I got no sleep. I got I basically broke night and I went
See,
to work.
Bobby A is a non-paid investigative journalist.
Yeah. I
Pretty.
was I was up to 6 in the morning. I worked all day and then I was still up to 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
Just you gotta have the stomach for it, as you know. You gotta be able to take it. You gotta have the stomach for it because it got wild. The stuff that I was seeing, but
So here, I'm gonna ask you this question then, because it kind of ties into just what you just said. Like, all
yeah.
right, I think you do have a negative view of the future, or let's say a pessimistic view
I
based off of.
wouldn't say those two words. I would say a
Okay,
more like a cynical word,
okay,
like
that's
nihilistic more. Yeah, but
okay.
it's the same thing. Yeah,
Negative.
yeah, yeah. It's the same thing.
If
Yeah,
if it's not a plus one. It's definitely either a zero or a negative one.
yeah.
What do you say?
Correct.
Okay, so and you believe I know like we talk about like with the insurance stuff and like bad dirty dealings and things like that. So I had a question was like, all right, I think we talked about this at one point. It was you, me, and Joe, but I don't know if I asked this question. Like, all right, if I could give you ultimate power, like to right one wrong, like what is the thing
Mm,
that gets your go that you're like, if I could just solve this one problem, can't solve all the problems, but I have a limited time, but I have like all of the resources and let's just say all of the wisdom. What is that one problem that you identify as like I would solve this?
that's an easy answer for me. I would end. It's a good question. I would end all private equity investment interest in anything
Okay,
but I would say finance. So
okay.
stocks and anything involving trading and investment. Yes, private equity firms are necessary, but private equity taking over things, industries such as healthcare, sports, pharmaceuticals, I would end all that. You're there. These firms are not allowed to have, and government too, because they're lobbyists as well, and even like the tobacco industry, the food industry, everything. I would I would ban them from ever doing anything but just being basically savings accounts. Banks that can just, oh, we're going to hold your money, we'll invest in other stocks, but we're not going to control anything else. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I'm not a finance expert, but
no, no,
that
and let's
yeah,
just define because as you were saying, I was like, do I really know what private equity is? And for anyone who else who
it's
might
a
be
hedge
dumb like
fund.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, it just says it's a type of investment where a firm buys a stake in a company that is not publicly traded on the stock
Yeah.
exchange. So, like, just like what you just said, like a company that says buys up all of the um, small family practice doctors' offices.
Yep.
Right now, you have this one company who's, as an investment, is buying up all of these smaller businesses, and now kind of has like a controlling power over how they operate.
Yeah.
Um,
That needs to end for everything, even entertainment. They're all in Hollywood and the sports industry as well.
so is there and you okay? So and with because you and Joe kind of often talk about this with sports, I think. So like how big a lot of these sports companies are now owned by essentially private equity, and they can kind of like control and manipulate and like steer the course of that company, which might go like very much against like the history of that franchise. Let's say, is that correct?
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's too correct.
So and why do you think, why would this be the wrong that you would solve? Like, of all the things you could solve, you could give like world peace, world hunger. This why this thing, which I'm not saying is wrong. I'm just curious
This is going to get very spiritual.
because you brought this up. I think like you and Joe kind of always are
Yeah,
talking about this.
I think this might get very. It's going to get very spiritual. I would say on this one
Go
is
ahead.
because I think that's. Remember when you said you believe that darkness and evil exists in the world? I think
Hmm.
that's it. That's what needs to be. That's the tumor and the cancer that needs to be cut out of society. That this obsession and greed with money and
Ah,
manipulation and greed and gluttony. That's when that's they represent all of that. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
yeah. So let me see if
they're
I
the evil.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can parse it out though, because it sounds like I get it, because I think that's even
Yeah.
deeper. It's like the idea that these companies, like this private equity company, is seeing things from the lens of like, is this an investment? So even if that thing is like helping people, it's like
It's
a
all it
family practice. It needs to be profitable. So it's like not about what it produces or who it helps. It's just about the bottom line. Like
yeah,
when I
it's
look at this as an investment, is it giving me green or is it red? If it's red, I'm gonna like destroy it because it's no longer helpful as an investment, even though it might be helping people.
correct.
Right? It's
It's
all about like the
it's
bottom line.
it's all spreadsheets and numbers and data and AI. Yeah, exactly. As there's no human touch to it at all.
Interesting. Like kind of paralleling this, like I had a conversation recently with someone I used to work with who was like kind of high up the food chain, and we were talking about like VC funding, because I think VC funding essentially is like a form of like private equity, and we were talking about how like go ahead, were you gonna say something?
No, yeah. VC I have less of a problem with than these firms that are basically piling up all the money and taking over other industries. You see what I'm saying? It's like they're gobbling up other things. Venture capitalism, it's if you want to go out and do your thing with your own money, then that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
I guess, but I mean,
You see it
they're kind of synonymous, right? Because essentially,
there, it's close.
they're
Yeah.
pools of other people's resources, right? Because VC, a lot of times you have money. I think being in like a VC is managing money and then investing it in, let's say, startups. And what happens, I think, oftentimes is like the startup, what it does is less important as to like, is it going to add to my bottom line? Are we going to get our money back? And like they will pressure a startup to do things which are maybe not in the best interest of the startup as a business, but are in the interest of the VCs who funded it,
Yeah,
right? Because
no,
they're
I
placing
see
many
what you're saying.
bets. They
Yeah.
don't really. They just need one horse to win, right? If they have 20 horses they're betting on, it doesn't matter to them which of the 20 wins, as long as the one that wins big. So they
Yeah.
might start hitting the horse because they don't care if that horse lives or dies. They just care that one of them lives or dies. So in a way, it's like it's
It's
not the same
similar,
thing, but it is a little bit similar,
but
perhaps.
it's the takeover part that I despise, I would say.
Yeah.
Taking over, changing the model, and not caring about how it affects anyone else that was involved with it before.
So is BlackRock, are they private equity?
Oh yeah.
They are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
And
mean,
Vanguard, BlackRock, and Fidelity. Those are the big ones.
yeah, so I mean, I kind of agree with that because like look at housing, right? Because you see like a common problem. I think uh, RFK talked about this with housing, right? Because you had all of the single family homes, which would usually be homes that like a young couple would buy or someone a young professional are being bought all up by private equity. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, you're creating a renter class where unless you have a lot of money, you're
That's what
having
they're
to
doing.
rent a home from private equity, from these big amalgamations of money, just buying whatever they can, whatever assets they can.
Yeah,
No, I agree 100%.
just stupid amounts of money too. And so we're instead of that was a good point. Instead of creating a because the American dream is about owning your own home, getting a new job. It's about ownership,
Yeah.
property, home, getting a good job, raising a family, having freedom, free speech, all this. They're trying to create a class of people that are dependent on them. So like the renter class. I've heard that
Yeah.
that's becoming very prominent. So you got people that are career renters, that are lifetime renters, that don't own, they have no assets other than the paycheck that they get from their job.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a real problem. Like, I think RFK talked about that in that, like, there should be and again, we've talked about this. Like, I'm pretty much like a libertarian in the sense of like, I want the government to stay out of things, but I liked what he said. Like, there are certain scenarios where a right operating government should kind of check business. And this is one of those things where it's like they have like a big private equity like Blackguard. They have you can't defeat them. Like you're not going to be able to out compete them bidding on a home. So you almost need the government to step in and say, no, you can't bid. You BlackRock can't bid on these houses. Like there's actually going to be a law put in place. Like this is an area, an industry that you cannot take part in because if you do, like citizens are not going to be able to ever compete. Therefore, it's like a monopoly. Now you own all the houses and like shit.
They,
Like you're gonna be
yeah,
everyone else is gonna have to rent from you, which is kind of insane.
yeah, but all these new luxury homes that are going, I don't know how it is by you, but just look at what happened. We hung out in Williamsburg. Everyone remembers what Williamsburg was like in 2010. Look at what it's like in 2025. See, now I'm going to wind myself up. It's all these big 50-story high rises, and it's all residential, and they're all owned by either one of those two companies. It's either Vanguard or BlackRock. And all these people are moving to New York, driving out all the cultural, so we could get into the cultural side of it, driving out all the natives and all the cultural side. And it's all just a renting class of people that either are supremely wealthy or they have some connection. They got the apartment through a connection, or sometimes people
It's
get
well,
lucky and get a
but
lottery.
regardless,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, unless you're on the very low totem pole, right, where you can take advantage of lotteries and like
Yeah.
assistance, or you're at the extreme high,
Now, but here's the rub,
you're
Chris.
kind of like in a rough spot.
Yeah, but here's the rub. They try to spin that as to they're helping people. Oh, we're gonna just give them. We're charitable. We're doing that. They make you believe
Yeah.
they're doing the right thing when actually they're taking the piss out of everyone.
With what?
And
What do you mean?
well,
With like what? Like lotteries? Like
no. Lotteries is just a way to protect them. So
oh yeah.
the public opinion will say, "Oh, they're actually doing something really good." They're not doing anything good. Everything they do is like you said, profit based. So they do that as a manipulation tactic. They try to brainwash you into think, oh, this company's actually, they gave this one person a good apartment on a random selection. So they're good people. They're not good people.
Well, and
They're
that's
not.
actually like the housing. I know. I think in New York is that it's legally they have to. I think anytime you build a new
There's a
like a
law, yeah.
apartment
Yep.
complex, you have to have so many units allocated to that. So it's just kind of like they're checking that off the box, but maybe they lean into the marketing as if it's a choice, but it's like not a choice. Like you had to do it if you
Yeah.
wanted to build this
Right,
massive
exactly. The
luxury
PR,
apartment complex.
yeah, the PR spin that they do on it, it's as if they're some kind of Robin Hood when they're not. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
So there's a book I was reading a little bit of this today. There's a I don't know if you're familiar with Ray Dalio.
I am
He's
not.
a finance guy, but he started writing a bunch of books about like like kind of like finance and like interpreting like the world. So I was reading this book. It's called The Changing World Order. He wrote this in 2021, and he kind of talks about how like he started to kind of study history to see like you know things change, like just like we talked about earlier with the cycles. And he was saying it was kind of interesting. He's like, one pattern you see is that like in any dynasty, in any government, in any country, it's like the smallest percentage of the population over time. And it's usually like it depends, different generations, they're different people, and sometimes they're aristocrats, sometimes they're royalty, sometimes they're oligarchs, but whoever, the resources begin to pull towards the top, right? And the majority gets less and less and less. And then it hits like, and over time, it's like you see that pattern increasing where more and more of the resources are trickling up, like reverse gravity. And then that always ends, like that cycle ends in violence. And then it starts all over again. So, like, all the resources pull to the top. Eventually, the bottom gets upset, rightfully so. There's revolution, war, reset, new changing world order, good for a while, and then the process begins again. So it's kind of interesting that like that what we're talking about, it's like almost like a human law. Like it always ends up that
It
some
does.
group or entity is going to get the top, and then eventually the bottom says enough's enough. Violence, it gets reset. A new group ends up on top, and then again the resources pull back up. Violence and reset, restart. So yeah, yeah.
No, I think that's the way it works. I think we're reaching that part, and the violent. It's. I always go back to this example. It's when Jonathan Pryce, the High Sparrow in Game of Thrones, when he says, "What happens when the many realize that they have more power than the few?
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it."
I mean, dude, the assassination of that CEO, it kind of like it dovetails with what we're talking about, right? Because
It
here's a
absolutely
guy,
does.
right, who's kind of at the top of the food chain, and then you have for lack of a better word, a kid, a guy, an everyday person for the most part, who just kind of like came up, shot him in the back. No, nothing complex about it. Like any that could happen to anyone at any time. It's just the fact of like most people, that's not an idea that pops into their head. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, yeah,
if it became like hunting season, like the purge, it'd be a dangerous place, right? Because there's more people walking around than there are private security, bodyguards. It's just a fact of like in times of peace, people don't think to do that. But like I think in this scenario, you would see like, okay, like that's an interesting example. Like when else can you kind of like comment on a time where some CEO just was literally assassinated? Like that wasn't a murder, kill, it was an assassination. Um, just on a street. It's yeah. I don't know.
yeah. It that really put everyone on notice. But uh, I'll get into more of this tonight because in
Oh yeah,
terms
tonight,
of
guys.
the
Go ahead.
conspiracy side of it is, look at how as soon as all this came out, I'll tease it right now. I believe someone set the fire in Los Angeles. Someone started that blaze.
Do you think it? Yeah, I don't want to go. I'll let
Yeah, we
you.
would.
I'll let
Yeah,
you do
we
your.
won't go into it that much, but that's basically what I'm going to talk about.
So I want to shift, right?
Yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, you're learning more about Bobby A. Okay, my next question.
yeah.
Okay, so some of the stuff we talked about in other episodes, but maybe we didn't like have this specific, like, this is the question. But I wanted to ask you because I was thinking about this today for myself. Uh, what is?
Go Will Smith here.
Hey, you're looking good, my man.
Yeah, Will Smith. Yeah, I was gonna go the Fresh Prince flip.
There you go.
Remember?
What is like a mental pattern that you can't shake? Like something that like
Mm,
I'll give you an example for myself, right? Like there's certain ideas that I have that I'm like, I know this is like logical, this is not correct, but like I'm influenced by it nevertheless. I'll give you an example, like fame. There's enough examples that show you that fame will not bring you happiness. However, many people are influenced by like a desire to become famous. Like they know, they can see, or many of those people can see, like, all right, here's a person who's famous and is depressed. Yet that like idea, that pattern is still a drive that kind of like influences their thinking, what they do, etc. So like what is one of those, I'm going to call it demons, spirits, patterns of thinking that like influences you even though you're like, ah man, like I know this is not right. I know this is not going to help me. I know this is not true, but like if I'm honest, like it is there kind of like motivating me.
That's an excellent question. There's two things. Number one is I've always had a problem with authority, so I always distrust people that have supervisory decision making ability.
Why? Why do you
The-
think that? Because I have that as well. I'm curious.
Um, I think it's more of a means of control or manipulation than it is something that's empowering for the people that are. So let's say the CEO of a company. If any CEO of any company, I instantly distrust unless I meet them and then I can talk to them. You could feel the energy, you can see the body language, be like, all right, he's actually like a good guy. That's what I think. uh, might be controversial, but I think this is what Elon is. Elon, I think, has the best interest of humanity in at heart when he's making all those decisions.
Okay.
But you have other CEOs that would rather see the downfall of society as long as it lines their pockets. So it doesn't matter. Nothing, their decisions don't matter as long as the profit margins and they're monetizing all their content goes up. So
Okay.
that's number one. And the second one is
Now hold. Can you hold for 1 second?
yeah.
I want to just. Now, do you think that that is true, or
Mm,
that's just like you know that that's in the background of your mind, kind of as a not a stereotype, but it's like a prejudice that you have?
yeah, no, it's definitely a bias. That's the
Okay,
what
bias.
I would
Thank you.
say. Yeah.
Okay, what's the
because
other one?
because a lot of bosses, I mean, we've had similar bosses. A
Yeah.
lot of bosses, I peg them the wrong way because that might have come out the wrong way.
No.
Not that
Well, no,
way. And
yeah.
for anyone
Oh.
thinking that way,
Oh.
well, not the zesty way. But there's I thought of them in the wrong light because I already had that inherent bias in my
Yeah.
mind, and they turned out to be cool.
Yeah.
So it has backfired on me. So yeah, to be completely honest, correct. Um, but there are times where I read it correctly,
Yeah.
and there's people that have it's all about corruption and the abuse of power, and I think that's the core of why I always have suspicion with authority. So
Okay. All right.
um,
What was the second one?
the second one is it's more of a personal thing.
Okay.
I always valued what other people thought of me more than I valued my own self. So I put everyone else's opinion of me before I put my opinion of myself off. Does that make sense? You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah. I would do things. I've made big life decisions and big career decisions based on what other people would think of me instead of what I really wanted to do. And that's a massive problem. That's the biggest problem I've had in my life. So,
Interesting. I think we talked about this
yeah.
before as well. I think that's, and I think both, I think that's definitely like for both of those, it's interesting because it's like I have the same with authority,
Yeah.
and I think they're very common to human beings. Like I think both of those I've have in different degrees, right? I was actually going to ask you the question, which it's funny that you brought this up. So like, or that you made that comment. My other question was like looking back on your life then, like, is there anything you regret, like a choice or a road you went down that, like, now looking back in retrospect, you're like, I would never, I shouldn't have made that decision. And I'm
Oh,
wondering, like, it sounds like
oh yeah.
because like you're influenced by other people, there's probably certain decisions you made that, like, looking back, you're like, I shouldn't have done that. I did that for the wrong reasons, or I did that because someone else told me. And if I could take my mind back now, I would do it very differently.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's good. Definitely, definitely. I should have never went to law school. I had no real interest in because I guess I didn't know enough. I didn't educate myself enough about going to law school in terms of it being more of a trade instead of more. I wish I went to grad school. I don't regret going to post undergrad school, but I wanted it to be more of an academic, educational learning experience. Law school is just teaching you how to be a lawyer. And once I was there for a year, and then you get stuck, you like, I've sunk so much money and time and energy into this. I have to finish it. And I wish I would have known before I made that decision. And to your point, I made that decision because I thought other people would want me to do that. I never wanted to do that, but I thought other people is like, oh, they'll respect me more. This is what I'm supposed to do.
Hmm.
And I wish I did something more like postmodern literature. Go to get a doctorate in postmodern literature. I would have way more fun. And I would so by third year law school, I'll tell you straight up. By third year law school, I was just partying. I didn't give a shit. I barely went to class. And
Hmm.
anyone who knows me knows they're like, yeah. But what validated me, I had one of the lowest GPAs in the school. I tell you that right now, because everyone at that school is very intelligent, and I barely passed, barely.
But you passed the bar on the first
I,
time.
yeah, I passed. I got by, but that there's you want to talk about someone who is I was playing kickball on Thursday nights, partying. Yeah, I didn't give a fuck. I didn't give. So, what was I going to say? So yeah, like everyone knew, but the one redeeming quality I had is there at the end of the year. There's like a I wouldn't say a prom because that's more for high school. It's like a party. It's like for everyone that's about to graduate and
Hmm.
go to graduation in about 2 weeks. There's a party, and I walk in, and the guy who one of my friends, I'm not going to name him because he has a high government position now in New York City. He goes, he knows who he is. Yeah, I don't know if he'll listen to it, but he'll know who he is. And he goes, he introduces he introduces me to a girl, like this girl in class that I guess liked me. So he was like, yo, come, like let me that she wants to meet you. And I was like, like how am I this infamous in this school? And he goes, this is Robert Avery. He's the coolest guy at the school, and this guy is now like, I think he's deputy commissioner of of the government agency I'm not going to name because then you can just look them up. But so it's like that. Like I became the guy. I became like the cool party animal guy. I was like John Belushi. So if that's how I treated law school, that's not how you should be treating law school if you seriously want to
Yeah.
be a lawyer. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you got to wonder, it's like how many people at that age know, like I wonder if they just muscle through the law. Like, all right, I'm here, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to just do it. Cuz how do you really know what it is until you're in it? Unless like you have a family member that's a lawyer, like your parents are lawyers.
Yeah.
Um I'm
Yeah. I
always
never knew
very
anyone.
Yeah, I'm always very impressed by younger people who, like, even when I was a younger person, like a high schooler who knows what they want to do and are informed about it. Like, where do you get? How do you have that degree of maturity where it's like you're 15 and you're like, I'm gonna be a doctor, and like for the next 4 years of high school, you're already setting yourself up for like college, medical school, and after.
A
It's
lot of
very
that is
interesting.
parenting, though. That's
Yeah, and
a,
I don't know if it's a
most of
bad
it
thing
is parenting.
either. Like I kind of, to me, I'm impressed by it.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's good parenting when you get that dedicated and you have that vision and focus. Because that when I was only thinking about partying and girls when I was in law school. I didn't give so it's
yeah,
I dude that's it, to answer your question to come back. That's a regret. I should have went to a postgraduate program that I was actually passionate about, then
yeah,
it would have changed everything. It's something involving with maybe journalism or literature. I
yeah.
would have been way more passionate about that.
I could see you
Do you
being.
see?
I mean, and the nice thing with journalism, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from getting into that now. But I do see you. You are a researcher. Like you really like to dig into, like, find the nugget, like
I
the
want the
true.
truth.
Yeah, and that's like rare. Not everyone is gonna put them on like energy into doing that. So I don't know, man. Maybe that's something you can
Yeah,
look
it's never
into.
too late. Never give up.
I mean, dude, yeah.
Yeah.
Not in that. I mean, if you told me you wanted to be like a professional hockey player, I'd say that ship has probably
Uh,
sailed. But being
the
a
book is closed on that
journalist,
one. Yeah.
I think you got plenty of time. All right, here's my. Let's go. See what else we got. I can ask you. All right, so this is a question. We talk about ancient aliens a lot. We talk about supernatural. We go down. We walk lightly down some of these conspiracy trails,
Here we go. Now
and
now we're speaking my language here.
yeah, I got a couple that are in this vein. But
Yeah.
so I have this question, right? So and I've asked myself this. Like if you were confronted by, I'm going to use the word miraculous, right? Let's say you're in Prospect Park or Central Park, one of the more uncharted areas, and then you're just confronted by like something you just can't explain. I'm going to call it the miraculous. An entity appears in the woods. An elf
I've seen one.
arises. Yes, I know the story. You listen to one of our other episodes.
Yeah.
Um, so I think people confronted by, let's call it in quotes, the miraculous. You have two categories, right? Some are going to just delude themselves. That wasn't, I didn't see anything. Others are going to be like, I believe what I saw was this. So which of those two do you think if you were confronted by the miraculous, you would believe immediately, or would you automatically look for a rational explanation for what you witnessed?
I well, first of all, like I'm scared of the dark still, and I'm almost
Yeah.
40, so I'm gonna be frightened a little bit. However, once I gather
You
myself,
could be afraid.
yeah,
Afraid is that
initially
you
I'm
believe.
definitely gonna be frightened. Initially, right off the bat. But once I compose myself, I think I would immediately want to have a conversation with what's ever happening if there's a way we could communicate with each other. Uh,
But you would believe. You would think.
oh, definitely.
Even if
Yeah.
it wasn't like, let's say you're sitting in Prospect Park and you see like Bigfoot just walks by. It's like this 30 seconds of time pass. Are you going to that was a thing. That wasn't human. Or are you going to be like, that was a person in the car? That didn't happen. I
No,
must have daydreamed. That wasn't real.
no, my mind would immediately go to the supernatural and the cryptic. Yeah,
Very interesting. Because
yeah,
I think people fall in those two categories. 'Cause how often have people like probably witnessed the miraculous, and then within about 30 seconds to a minute, they've already kind of rationalized what they saw, and then are back into their normal frame of mind doing their routine. I think
yeah.
people fall into those two camps.
No, they do. That's why I one of my favorite questions to ask people when I'm getting to know them is, let's say you're in the middle of the woods. Let's say you, Chris Corvo, are in the middle of the woods and you hear something behind you. What's your first thought? Is it something mysterious or is it a person? Like, is it an intruder? It's the same thing in your house. Let's say you wake up in the middle of the night and you hear something strange. I believe I've posed this question
Yeah.
before, and do you immediately think it's a someone that it's like a home invasion, or do you think there's something like ghostly going on? That says a lot about who you are.
Yeah.
I immediately go to the supernatural.
Yeah, I think more often than not. Like for example, like if I think a lot of people have this. Like you're in a basement and you go up the stairs and you have to turn the lights off.
Yeah,
Like I have an illogical fear that there's something. Like you run up the steps, like there's
Y-
nothing down there. You were down there,
yeah,
but
that's
like
true.
turn the lights off and you're like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta run. Right? I've had that before, and like that is like to me, I have the bent towards the supernatural. Right? I
I like
am
that.
gonna think that because I believe that there's things out there. If I
Same
hear
as me.
something, I'm gonna kind of like probably go supernatural, then real, unless
Yeah,
I'm in a certain environment where it's like my mind's already doing the calculations where it's like, okay, right, I hear something, it's at the front door of where I live, it's nighttime. I'm probably gonna think like intruder, human. But for example, I'll give you an example. So
hmm
lately, not even lately, for the last like year or so, periodically as I'm drifting off to sleep, I will wake up to the sound of like hissing in my ear. It sounds like a
that's
ghoul,
not good.
like like that sound, and it'll wake me up of a sleep. I'll just be like, and I'll wake up and I'll look around and I don't see anything, and it happens like it's happened many times. So I don't know what that is. It's either a dream, it's actually my own breathing waking me up. Maybe I'm like making a sound and it startles me. It's a demonic entity. I don't know. But like my first impression when that happened was there is a supernatural presence in the room and I'm looking around. So that tells you a little bit about me.
Yeah, no, I'm identical to that. I don't even the another human being trying to break in is the fifth thing that I think of. It's
You're like
that's why
alien,
that's why I need a
ghost.
nightlight. It's actually, I don't know, I wouldn't use the word pathetic, but maybe I should see someone about this. I can't sleep in total darkness. There has to be a nightlight.
I mean, let's go a little, true detective. I mean, the darkness is a scary place. I mean, human
Yeah.
beings, there's probably an instinctive fear of the dark for a reason. There's dangerous things in the dark.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you're
that's
right.
why we have fires going all the time in ancient times.
Yeah, but I asked my other friends, and they're like, "Yeah, I turned the lights off when I got." I don't know how you can. Even I can understand if you had a partner, if you have a wife, boyfriend, whatever, and there's someone else there, then I'm cool. Even if it was a dog, I would be cool. Another living being.
Yeah.
But if I'm alone in the room, which I have been most of my th-
Yeah.
30 plus years in my life, 35 plus years. I can't. I need some kind of a light source. I can't be completely pitch black because I can't sleep. I'll freak out.
Well,
There's
ladies and
something
gentlemen, now you know.
I'm afraid of the dark.
Now you know.
It's Nickelodeon style. Um. So
There was
yeah,
a there was a I think it was on MTV back in the day. They would do like pranks, and there was one great one. It's the only one I really remember, but like there's a bunch of people. It's like there maybe a group they're going out for like night on the town in a city, and they're in a cab, or like an Uber, and the cab is the cops turn the like put a light on the like put the sirens on the cab, and the cab starts to evade the police. Right, this is all staged, but it starts to evade the police, and then it turns down an alley, and then the guy who's driving the car gets out the car and runs down to the end of the alley. And then he looks back, and there's like two guys, two girls, like this group that went out for drinks or something. And he looks at them, and then he just like flies. Like he literally just like lifts off the ground, flies like out, like on up a building. And they're just like looking at this, freaking out. And I remember watching it because I was like, I would freak out. Like, can you imagine? Like, I don't even think we can kind of like quantify how we would react to that, because that would be like a miraculous. That'd be like, what was that's an what just happened?
I know.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I like, but and on a humorous side, I do like pranks like that.
Oh,
I
they're great.
do like people getting scared. There's this one prank that I saw where two people are walking down the street, and one it's so shitty to do this to someone that's just like minding their own business, but two people are walking down the street and one guy comes running around the corner and he's like, run, run. It doesn't, you don't know what he's running from, but
Oh,
he keeps screaming run, and then all the two guys, they just freak out. Like you said, you don't know what your body's gonna do. You just go into survival instinct.
yeah. I mean,
And
you see. Go ahead. Sorry.
and then he's carrying a case of beer and he drops it, and all the beers, like he lost like the 12-pack of beer that he had because they all like busted and
So
spilled.
pissed.
Yeah,
So
they
pissed
got that.
after that.
And then the guy comes back and he's like, yo, what are you doing? Why did you do that? Yeah. So
Um,
it is funny to
yeah.
watch, but it's like, well, you don't, to your point, you don't know how you're going to react in that situation. Sometimes your brain just goes into autopilot and you
Yeah,
don't
you're
know.
like survival. There's
Yeah,
humans running, run.
yeah,
Um,
that's so. But it is funny to see people react to like scare pranks. I do like that. Yeah,
so do I. So do I.
yeah,
All right, here we go. So we got a couple more minutes, and I have
yeah.
a couple more questions. Um, so again, we talk about going down the weird and the wild a little bit. Like Ancient Aliens is good because it really talks about like ancient times.
Mhm.
So like, what is from your perspective? Like, what is like the craziest mystery of like antiquity, of like ancient times? Like something that, like, so for example, like Joe Rogan is always, he always talks about the pyramids. He's always blown away by the pyramids. Um, so for you, like, what is something that like that's from ancient times, mythology, history, even like what I'd call like that gray area of history that just like whenever you get caught thinking about it, you just go down a rabbit hole.
Uh, I Yeah, that I would say the structures are part of it, but I would say more the fact that all these indigenous people from all the different continents around the globe have a very similar view of what happened in antiquity in ancient times, like how similar all their religious beliefs are, their cultural traditions are. That is, I think that's the key to knowing that maybe something was happening back before we can record what was happening. So I think it's more the religious text, how everything, how, let's say, like the flood story.
Yeah.
Everyone has a flood story.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a origin story, and they're all so eerily similar. It's so similar that it's eerie how close they are. It's just the characters have different names. That's it.
Yeah.
Um,
Good point.
that's the part where I know. That's when I got really into it, and I was saying, there's something to this, because how could that physically be possible in a time where there was no way to communicate with any other part of the world other than maybe someone was flying around and doing something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I do find it interesting, and like we have this idea that like there wasn't a lot of like communication between like these like for example, like most people would say like the first people that came to America came through like that land bridge, um South America, like, and then they got down into South America, and that,
Yeah,
right.
from Asia, from Russia into Alaska. Yeah,
Yeah, and then but then it's like interesting that they like the pyramids. Like there's a pyramid. I think they discovered this a while back. Like they're
yeah,
like the largest pyramid in the world is maybe not. It's not in Egypt. I think it's in like South America. And like why they have like a lot of these similarities as if they're one culture, or there was a lot more
yeah,
movement of
exactly.
people. Like their ability to navigate like the oceans and the land masses was much more sophisticated than we think. So like, you know, you know what I mean? It's just I think the world. I really buy into the whole, fingerprint of the gods, Randall Carlson, like this idea that all these people in the world really have a shared culture, and they probably came from the same place, and
Yeah,
they just migrated. Right? There's always the interesting story of the Bible where it talks about how like when they made the Tower of Babel, and then their languages were spread out. Like they were moved,
hmm,
and like, all right, it's kind of interesting that like you find certain, even I think certain like pictographs in some South America that line up with like Egyptian
oh yeah, definitely.
pictographs, and that even some of the gods are similar. Yeah, that to me is kind of a mystery that
I that
tickles my
that's I
brain.
think I think that's the one thing we have to investigate more. I don't even know how you could tie all that together. It may be impossible at this point because a lot of information has been lost. But going back to Graham Hancock, like
Yeah,
maybe that that Dryas in 12,000 years ago, we could have had more answers if that didn't happen. But um, that's the most interesting thing to me, and I think it's undeniable. Think if anyone that does even the lightest amount of research or reading, that has to pique your curiosity. How is how are the Incas and the Mayans and the Aborigines in Australia and the ancient tribes in Africa, in Asia, and even the Native Americans? Why is everything so similar?
yeah. Why can you find the
Yeah,
similar roots to the
yeah,
stories, to the mythology,
yeah,
to like things that they drew? Yeah, I would agree with
yeah,
that.
yeah. So
Um,
the
yeah.
largest pyramid, you're right. It's in Mexico. It's in
Yeah, which
Puebla,
is
Mexico.
is crazy, right? You think like, I mean, I guess I always buy into like some people would explain that in that human beings confronted by problems solve the problems in the same way, even if they're not near each other. Like, who invented the wheel? Probably not one. Maybe it wasn't one person, right? It's like many people saw a problem and they solved it in the same way at different places in the world, completely unrelated to each other, right? So like that is an explanation of the pyramid, but it is kind of interesting. Um, yeah, even like the Aztecs, like proclivity for sacrifice. I feel like I've heard people talk about how that really had a lot of similarities to like
Oh
Middle
yeah,
Eastern peoples who
human
also human sacrifice.
human
Like there was a
sacrifice.
very much a big commonality in like
Definitely.
how they saw the world. So it's kind of interesting. Like, is there something they shared at one point, a
Yeah,
shared ancestor?
even like the costumes and everything are very similar. Like even in Australia, and I would say like the like you said, Aztecs, Incas, and Mayans, even when they were doing all these rituals, the the way they dressed was similar. I don't
Interesting.
that's crazy stuff, man.
So as we wind down, I'll give you this last question, which is kind of an easy one, I guess, but I'm curious what you think. Do you think there is non-human intelligent life walking around our planet? You could go aliens, but you also could go like we've talked about before in our Real Monsters episode, like I don't know, immortals, vampires, werewolves, like fill in the blank, fairies, like non-human intelligent life on our planet?
I'll answer this with a story. The answer is yes.
Okay.
Um, I was this was during COVID. Remember lockdown? This was
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
lockdown. So the only thing you could really do was walk around, which is a shambles now. Like we realized that we really didn't have to like get that, but that's getting way too political. We didn't have to get that too serious about it. Um, but I was walking around one day and it was nighttime, and obviously during lockdown there was barely anyone outside, and it was night. It was dark because this was when I was in Florida, and I was walking, just trying to get some exercise, just trying to clear your mind, so you're just not, you don't have cabin fever, you're stuck inside all day. And one person came up to me out of nowhere. It was dark, so they could have been walking. I didn't see them until they got like probably like 5 yards in front of me, and it was a woman. It was a middle-aged woman, and she says, "I know you." And I said, "Excuse me," because I didn't recognize her. Had never seen her before in my life. And she goes, "Yeah, I know you. You helped me." And I said, I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm confused. I don't remember any of this. Can you explain?" And she said, "Yeah, I needed help one day. I needed a ride, and you helped me get home. And I just want to say thank you for that." So then I'm getting chills now. I'm like, what is happening? Because I don't recognize this person. Is she just deranged or crazy? But she
And you
didn't
don't
look.
drive.
No, I don't drive. And she didn't look. You know what I'm saying? She didn't look like she was a vagrant from the street. She
Yeah.
was like well dressed, clean, and she goes, "No, like you helped me." And I was like, "Well, I have, like, maybe it was my brother or something, I don't know." And she was like, "No." She's like, "I just, all I wanted to say was thank you, and you really helped me out." And then she walked away. We passed each other. Then I was like, "What was that?" And then I looked to my left, and we were in front of a like a tarot place, like a psychic place. What do you call the people that read? Fortune
Like a
teller.
fortune teller.
Fortune teller does the story. That's the word I was looking for. And we were in front of a fortune teller like establishment. Fast forward to a couple of weeks later, I'm walking by the same fortune teller spot, and I just get a feeling out of nowhere, and I was like, whoa. And then I look around, and I was like, should I go inside this place? And one of another regret that I have is I got like this feeling, and like it was just in my soul. I was like, should I go inside this place? I didn't go inside, and I really regret doing that, because what if I went inside, and what if some interdimensional being, like you're saying, was like, go inside this place, you need to talk to someone in there. So that's what I got. Like, I'd never seen that person ever again. I had never seen her before that, but she was like, I want to really thank you. You helped me out a lot. And then she just went on her way, never to be seen again. In the middle, there was no one else for miles in the street. I had walked 2 miles and not seen one person. It's not like New York where you see people every block. Ow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? It was just in the middle of the darkness. Someone, I remember what she was wearing. It was like an orange dress. It was orange. That's what I remember. It was a dress. She was wearing a dress during lockdown and COVID, like some kind of Oscar dress. And then she walked away. So, yes, I do believe that. That was someone that was traveling from a different place.
Perhaps. You need to write. You need to
I'm
write a
convinced.
novel or something, man.
Yeah.
I would love to read that book.
Yeah, and I do regret not going into when I got that feeling of like deja vu. You know, when you get the
Yeah.
deja vu feeling, I should have went inside. I should have
Yeah.
done it.
What a strange. It is interesting that we have a word to describe feeling as if we've lived a moment before.
Yeah, that's
Like I
deja.
have that, and I feel like I have it frequently, and I'm like, if you like dwell on it for a while, it'll wig you out a little bit because you're like, why? I lived this, I felt this, like the idea,
Yeah,
the
this is
words in
real.
my head, I've already expressed these before. This is, and it's like, why do we as humans experience that feeling, right? Of like, oh, I've lived this moment before. Maybe it's that the idea of the collective unconscious. Like maybe you didn't live it before, but someone else did, and you're just able to tap in and feel that.
Yeah.
Um,
No, that's why
yeah,
I've tried to do scientific research on deja vu. It's like they try to explain it as some kind of brain chemistry thing, but I think it's more what you were alluding to and what I believe in, that
yeah,
it's you did really have that experience, but was it in the past? Was it in an alternate dimension?
yeah.
Was it in like spiritually? Who knows? Who knows? But I think it's real. I think deja vu is real. It's an unmistakable feeling because everyone knows it instantly.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've ever delved into it deeply, but yeah, I mean, it is an interesting thing. Like, yeah, every human that you've talked to has probably experienced it once. I like how even in the Matrix, the movie, how they even incorporate that deja
They talk
vu,
about it. Yeah,
right? Because it is such a fundamental. Everyone who watches that knows what that feels like. Oh, I've
yeah.
done this, or I've felt this, or I've seen this, or I've had this conversation before. Yeah, I think my takeaway is just that, like, dude, life is infinitely more complex and more nuanced than like I think any of us can imagine. And I think like the only response to that is like massive humility. And I think that's why, like, we talked about history last week, and it's like I think as I've gotten older, my feeling that I actually know what's going on has lessened, and my degree of humility has like increased. Because it's just like I'm so tired of listening to people tell me like, oh, this is going to happen this year, this is going to happen next year, you need to be doing this, like all of like the clickbait you see on like YouTube, for example. Even for those you, even some of the clickbait that I produce in our shorts. um, but again, it's just like this idea, like no one knows, like human beings don't know that much. It's amazing what we're able to accomplish with how little we really know. And I always have a great degree of skepticism for anyone trying to like state the future or state like, oh, they know, I'm a scientist, so I know everything that's going on, and I can say that that's not real and this is real. It's like 100 years from now, I think what is scientific law will, some of it will be disproven. New ideas will be discovered that kind of counter views that we taught in science class. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I think you have to be like humble. Like things are going to change. Like what you believe is true today could be proven false tomorrow. So anyway,
Yeah,
dude,
I
give me your final thoughts.
so yeah,
Sorry, I
I
cut you off.
think no, it's okay. There's for what I would say is, if anyone wants to take my advice for whatever it's worth, we're reaching the end of something. What it is, I don't know. I'm gonna try to explore it further. I have my own beliefs, but I'm not gonna impose that on anyone. Um, this is weird. This is a time something is happening right now, because you think of all the natural disasters that are happening, all the wars, the political climate. We're in whatever that book you mentioned before. Can you send that to me so I can remember it?
I'll add it.
Yeah,
I'll add it in the
yeah,
notes for this episode for
yeah,
anyone
yeah.
who's interested.
So
The
put it in the
fourth,
disc.
the fourth turning.
Yeah, put it in the description because I want to check that out. Uh, we're reaching the end and of a cycle, and we're due for a reset, for a cleanse.
Hmm.
That's what I would say. And so get your affairs in order. Make sure everything is good. I'm not saying it could be a glorious thing. I'm not saying it's going to be devastation, but we'll find out.
There you go, ladies and gents. Thank you for
Done.
tuning in. Have a good night.
Peace.